Good morning, boys and girls of class 12 science. So today we will continue with the topic female reproductive system. In the class we have learned about the male reproductive system. Alright? So today in continuation we will learn about the female reproductive system. So here we will talk about the different organs and the functions and the structures that leads to the formation, development and the functioning of the female system. So let's continue. So what are the different components of the female reproductive system? Alright, what is it composed of? So when we look into the composition of female reproductive system, it is composed of a pair of ovary, fallopian tube, we also call it oviduct, uterus, cervix, vagina, Barthold's gland and the mammary glands. And in fact we also have got the external genitalia which is called the vulva. Alright, so let's look into the figure over here. So let's see, you can see over here. So you can see the pair of ovary, right? This one is the oviduct or the fallopian tube, the uterus part, alright, the cervical part and the vagina. Clear? So when we look into the ovary, look over here, the yellow color structure over here, we'll go in detail afterwards. Can see the ovary over here, alright? So this ovary, alright, the small almond shaped structure organ. Clear? Now it is located in the abdominal cavity or the pelvic region. One more time, ovary is located in the abdominal cavity or in the pelvic region. Now, there's a difference between the location of testis and the ovary. Testis was present extra-abdominal. Extra-abdominal. It was located in the scrotum. Alright? Now, what was the requirement for that? Now, why was the testis present in the scrotum? Because for the formation of sperm, the temperature has to be less than 2 to 3 degrees Celsius less. Alright? But such requirement of temperature is not there for the formation of ova or the ovum from the ovary. So that's why ovary is present within the abdomen or in the pelvic region. Now, we can figure one more time. So it is located dorsally from the body wall by the help of a mesentery called mesovarium. So this one, alright, this one is a transparent mesentery. Alright, this particular layer is a transparent mesentery which we call mesovarium. And the ovary is attached to the uterine wall by the help of ovarian ligament. So this particular structure is the ovarian ligament which will help in the attachment of ovary with the wall of the uterus. So let's go over here. So you can see over here it says that ovary, alright, will help in the formation or the production of female gamete that is called ova or ovum. In fact, we will call it secondary oocytes. That we will talk in detail when we study about menstrual cycle and gametogenesis. So first one, the ovary function is the production of ova or the production of ovum. And second function is to produce the female sex hormone that is estrogen and progesterone. Clear this one? Okay, next one. Now, generally, the structure or the size of the ovary, it mainly measures about approximately 8 cm long and 5 cm wide, and is usually small almond-shaped structures. Alright? Now next one, I told you that it is located in the lower abdominal region or in the pelvic region. And even we have discussed about the regions, why it is present within the abdomen or in the pelvic region. Because there is no such requirement of temperature for the formation of ova from the ovary. Like in case of testis, the formation of sperm requires less than 2 to 3 degrees Celsius lower body temperature. Am I right? So over here, in case of ovary, there is no such requirement of temperature for the formation of female gamete, that is ova. Okay, last one. Look over here. So ovary is attached to the abdominal wall by the help of mesothelium and to the uterus by the help of ovarian ligament. So let's come back to the diagram. So look over here. So this is the pair of ovary. Alright. So ovary is attached to the abdominal wall by the help of transparent mesentery called mesothelium and to the wall of the uterus by the help of ovarian ligament. So this is the ovarian ligament, and over here you will find the mesothelium. Clear this one? So let's go to the next part. Okay. Ovary. Alright, so we'll talk about the microscopic anatomy of ovary. So when we look into the transverse section of ovary, what are the different regions we'll find over there? Alright. So the first one, when we look into the transverse section of ovary, what we observe is that the outermost covering we observe. Okay, the outermost covering of the ovary will be there, which is called ovarian epithelium or the germinal epithelium. So the outermost part of the ovary is called the ovarian epithelium or germinal epithelium. And next to it there will be the second layer, which is called tunica albuginea. Clear? Okay, now after this ovarian epithelium or germinal epithelium and tunica albuginea, we'll find the third part of the ovary, which is called the stroma part, which is called the stroma. Now stroma has got two regions, the outer region and the inner region. Alright, so the outer region is called the stroma and the inner region is called the medulla. So look in the figure over here. So over here, this particular outer part, alright, is called the stroma. Alright, this outer part of the ovary is called the stroma and the inner part is called the medulla. Alright, so within the medulla, we will find the follicles at different stages of development. Clear? So the entire middle part, which contains the follicle at different stages of development, that is called the medulla part. Alright? So in the medulla part, first of all, we will find the primordial germ cells. Alright, we'll find the primordial germ cells. Clear? A group of primordial germ cells, and each and every month, only one of the primordial germ cells will keep on developing. It starts developing, it forms the primary follicle, alright? Then it forms the secondary follicle, it develops into tertiary follicle, and finally it will develop into the mature Graphian follicle. So one more time, within the medulla, we will find different stages of development of the follicular cells. Alright, the different types of primordial follicular cells which keeps on developing. Only one of the primordial follicle cells starts developing each and every month. It develops into primary follicle, then into secondary follicle, then into tertiary follicle, and finally into the mature Graphian follicle. Now, how to identify the Graphian follicle? Alright, so look over here. So in the Graphian follicle, we will find a fluid-filled cavity which is called the antrum. So this one is the fluid-filled cavity which is called the antrum, and this one is the secondary oocyte or the ovum. Alright, so we'll talk afterwards. Why do we call it secondary oocyte? Not the ovum. Clear? So when we talk about the gametogenesis and when we discuss about menstrual cycle, we'll talk over there. Why do we call it secondary oocyte, not the ovum? Clear? So within the mature Graphian follicle, we'll find the fluid-filled cavity which is called the antrum, and we'll find the secondary oocytes. Clear? Now, after the formation of Graphian follicle, it will rupture. Alright, it will break down. It will break. It will rupture. So, when the mature Graphian follicle ruptures, then there will be release of ovum. Alright, so when the Graphian follicle matures and when it will be ruptured, the ovum will be released. So therefore, the release of ovum or the secondary oocyte from the Graphian follicle is known as ovulation. What do we call it? We call it ovulation. So when the Graphian follicle matures and when it will be ruptured, the ovum will be released from the Graphian follicle, which is known as ovulation. Clear this one? After that, after the ruptured Graphian follicle, alright, the blood vessels will be ruptured, a little amount of tissue will also be ruptured, leading to the formation of a blood clot. Clear? So now, the ruptured Graphian follicle, look over carefully, the ruptured Graphian follicle will change into a yellow mass of body, which is called the corpus luteum. Alright, so after the rupture of Graphian follicle, alright, it will change into yellow mass of body, which is called the corpus luteum. And this corpus luteum is essential for the formation of the hormone called progesterone. Alright, because this progesterone will help in maintaining the pregnancy. Alright, if there is fertilization, so that fertilization will form the zygote, right? Zygote undergoes development into formation of morula, blastula, it goes into implantation, right? There will be gestations. So that particular process of pregnancy has to be maintained and is mainly done by the help of the hormone called progesterone. But if there is no fertilization, alright, if the gametes has not been fused, then this corpus luteum will degenerate, alright, and it will form the corpus albicans. So when there is no fertilization, this corpus luteum will degenerate and forms a white mass of body which is called the corpus albicans. Clear this one? So one more time we'll go through it. So what we have learned till now? We have learned that in the transverse section of ovary, we will find the two layers called the Ovarian Epithelium or Germinal Epithelium, the outermost layer. Then we will find the second layer called Tunica albuginea. Then we will find the layer called Stroma, which is divided into outer cortex and inner medulla. Clear? So medulla contains the follicle at different stages of development. Alright? So one of the primordia follicle will develop to form primary follicle, primary to secondary, secondary to tertiary follicle, and finally tertiary follicle will develop to form the mature Graphian follicle. Clear? Now after the formation of Graphian follicle, it will rupture and it will lead to ovulation. And what is ovulation? It is the release of mature ovum from the Graphian follicle. After ovulation, the remaining part of the Graphian follicle will change into corpus luteum, which will secrete the hormone called progesterone. And if there is no fertilization, then this corpus luteum will change into a white mass of body called corpus albicans. Hope it is clear for you? Okay, now let's move to the next slide. Okay, so here we have the next part, which is called the Fallopian tube or the oviduct. So let's see the structures of Fallopian tube or that of the oviduct. Okay, now, so we have learned that from the ovary, the ova will be released, right? Now, that ova has to be collected, right? So once the ova will be released from the ovary, that ova has to be collected, that ovum has to be collected and has to be transported from the fallopian tube towards the uterus. So now we will learn the structures of fallopian tube or the oviduct. So look over here. Alright. So generally this fallopian tube, it measures about 10 to 12 centimeter long. So from here to here, usually it measures about 10 to 12 centimeter. Alright, extends from the ovary till or towards the uterus. Okay, next one. So let's see the different regions of the fallopian tube or that of the oviduct. So the first regions that we usually find in the fallopian tube or in the oviduct is the infundibulum. So you can see over here this part, the broad funnel shaped part. This is the infundibulum. Alright, what we call it? We call it infundibulum. The second part is the long white portion, which is called the ampulla. Alright, this long portion is called the ampulla. The short narrow portion is called the isthmus. Alright, this part is called the isthmus, and the last part is called the uterine part that opens into the uterus. So what are the different parts of the fallopian tube? The first part is the broad funnel shaped part, which is called infundibulum. The long part, which is called the ampulla. Then isthmus, and the uterine part that opens into the uterus. So remember, this fallopian tube or the oviduct has to collect the ova, which is released from the ovary. Alright, so which part of the infundibulum will receive the ovum or will collect the ovum from the ovary? Alright, so once the ova will be released from the ovary, or let's say, so when the ovum, when the female gamete will be released from the ovary, it will be collected by a finger-like projection. You can see over here. Alright, this is the finger-like projections. Alright, this finger-like projection is called the fimbriae, F-I-M-B-R-I-A. This fimbriae, alright, this fimbriae has to collect the ova or the ovum from the ovary after ovulation. So the opening of the fimbriae is called the ostium, O-S-T-I-U-M. Alright, so this fimbriae will collect the ovum from the ovary, and that ovum will move into the infundibulum. Alright, and from the infundibulum it goes to the ampulla and then to the isthmus. Now, at the junction of the ampulla and the isthmus, there will be fusion of gametes. And what is it called? The fusion of motile haplogamete and the female gamete is called fertilization. Clear? So fertilization occurs in the junctions of ampulla and the isthmus of the fallopian tube. And when there will be fertilization, there will be formation of a single cell diploid structures called zygote. Clear? What do we call it? Zygote. A single cell which is diploid, formed by the fusion of haploid male gamete and the haploid female gamete. Alright? And that zygote moves towards the uterus. Clear? Okay. Now, let's move into the next part. Alright? So remember carefully that fallopian tube will help in the transport of ovum from the ovary towards the uterus, and at the junction of ampulla and isthmus. Alright, there will be fertilization leading to the formation of zygote. Clear this one? Okay. Now let's see the next one, uterus part. Because we are saying that the female reproductive system is composed of a pair of ovaries, right? Which we have discussed. It's composed of fallopian tube or the oviduct. Alright? Then the next part is the uterus. So you can see over here the structure of the uterus. Alright? And it's clear for you. So look over here. So uterus, it looks like an inverted pear-shaped structures. Alright? It's attached to the body wall by the help of another mesentery called mesometrium. It measures about 8 cm long and 5 cm wide and 2 cm thick. Clear? Now let's see the compositions of the uterus. What is it composed of? Alright, so when we look into the uterus, first of all, we'll find the broad funnel shaped structure, which is called the fundus, F-U-N-D-E-S. So this particular broad funnel shaped part, we will call it fundus. Clear? The next part we'll call it the cornua, C-O-R-N-U cornea, from where the oviduct enters the uterus. So this part is called the cornua, C-O-R-N-U-A, which from where the fallopian tube enters into the uterus. The next part is the main part. This is called the body part. This is called the body part, and the last part is called the cervix. Okay, so these are the different parts of the uterus. The broad-shaped part or the dome-shaped part is called the fundus. Then cornua, from where the fallopian tubes enters inside the uterus. Then the main part of the uterus, which is called body part, and we call it the cervix. Now we will focus into the main body part of the uterus. It is mainly composed of 3 layers of cells. Alright, this body part is mainly composed of 3 layers of cells. So what are those 3 layers? So look over in the next slide, then we come back to the figure. Those 3 layers are usually called the perinatrium, the outer layer, myometrium, the middle layer, which undergoes contraction during childbirth. We'll discuss it. Then the innermost layer is called the endometrium, which undergoes cyclical changes during menstrual cycle. So let's come back to the previous slides. Look over here. So you can see over here. So this outer layer, alright, this outer layer, this particular layer is called the perinatrium, alright. This middle layer is called the myometrium, which undergoes contraction during parturition. Now what is parturition? It is the process of the birth of the child. Alright, so during parturition, the uterus has to undergo vigorous contraction. It has to contract. Alright, so those contraction of the uterus is mainly accompanied by the help of myometrium. And innermost layer, this layer is called the endometrium. And this endometrium undergoes cyclical changes during menstrual cycle. Alright, so each and every month, this endometrium has to undergo change. Alright, so in order to maintain the possible pregnancy. Clear for you now? Okay. So let's go next part now. The function of uterus. Look over here. It receives the ovum. It forms the placenta and it helps in parturition. Now you know what is parturition. Alright, so let's move to the next part. It's called the cervix part. Now look at the figure carefully. Alright, so till now what we have learned? We have learned that the female reproductive structures is composed of a pair of ovary. Alright, and this ovary are connected to the wall of the uterus by the help of ovarian ligaments. Clear? Then it is connected to the dorsal wall by the help of a transparent mesentery called mesotherium. Clear? Then second part is called the fallopian tube or the oviduct. We have learned about the fimbriae, which will collect the ovum, which releases from the ovary. Then infundibulum part, then we have got ampulla part, isthmus part, and the uterine part. Alright, which will open into the uterus. Then this is the uterus part. We have got the fundus part, the dome-shaped part, alright, cornua part, the main body part, clear? Then the cervix part. Okay, now we will focus over here in the cervix part. Clear? So let's begin with the cervix. Go there. So within the cervix, you will find a particular space over here. Alright, this space is called the cervical canal, or this cavity is called the cervical canal, and it measures about 2.5 centimeter long. Alright, so this particular cervical canal, it measures about 2.5 centimeter long, and you can see the 2 openings. At the upper opening, it is being connected with the uterus, and at the lower opening, it is being connected with the vagina. Alright, so this particular aperture of the cervix, from where it will connect with the uterus, that is called internal os. Os means orifice. Clear? So this particular aperture, from where the cervix will connect with the uterus, that is called internal os or internal orifice, and this lower aperture, the lower canal, which will connect with the vagina, that is called external os or external orifice. Clear? Okay, next one. Now, what is the function of this cervical canal? The cervical canal will secrete the mucus, which provides lubrication during sexual intercourse. Alright, so this particular cervical canal will secrete the mucus. Alright, and that mucus is essential for lubrication during the sexual intercourse, and it also helps in the transport of sperm. Clear? Next one. Look over here. So cervix, the two functions we have mentioned already. First one produces what? Mucus to provide lubrication. Second one, it helps in the transport of sperm. Now this cervix will open into the vagina by the help of the opening called external OS or external orifice. Now this vagina will open into the outside by the help of vaginal orifice, the opening of which is bounded by the fold of mucus called hymen, Hymen. So at the opening of the vagina, we will find vaginal orifice which is bounded by a layer or fold of mucus called hymen. And it said that the persistence of hymen is the indicator of virginity. Alright, but this hymen can be ruptured due to injury, alright, or it can be ruptured during vigorous exercising or during cycling. So we cannot say that this hymen is the indicator of virginity in case of females, alright, or in fact sometimes you can persist even after the sexual intercourse. Clear this one? Okay. Now, what is the function of vagina? Alright. So the function of vagina is to receive the male penis during copulation or during sexual intercourse. Alright. Second function, it is utilized for the menstrual flow. Alright. For the menstrual flow, that will be menstruation, the ruptured blood vessels, the ruptured ovary, which is not fertilized, has to flow through the vagina, which is called the menstrual cycle or the menstrual flow. And third function of vagina, it acts as the passage for birth, or that it will help in parturition. Alright, so through the vagina, it receives the male penis during copulations. Number two, the passage for menstrual flow, and it acts as the birth canal. It helps in parturition. Clear this one? So, the overall structures of the female reproductive system. Clear? So what is composed of? It's composed of pair of ovary, fallopian tube, alright? It's composed of uterus, the cervix, the vagina, and we also find the accessory glands that will help in fertilization. That is called Barthol's gland, alright? And the mammary glands that will produce the milk. Moving to the next slides. Ejections or secretion of milk. Right. So we have learned about the functions of uterus, right? The cervix part, then the vagina part. Clear? So now we'll talk about the mammary glands that will help in the formation of milk. Clear? So what does lactation means? Clear? So when we're talking about the formation of milk, the secretion of milk, so what does the term lactation means? So lactation means the formation and the secretion of milk from the mammary gland. So because during pregnancy and after the childbirth, the milk formation has to be there. Clear? So during pregnancy, the hormone prolactin, alright, we'll come afterwards, the hormone prolactin will help in the production of milk, and after childbirth, the secretion of the milk is controlled by the hormone called oxytocin. Okay, so what is lactation? Lactation is the formation and secretion of milk from the mammary glands. And the formation of the milk and secretion of the milk is under the control of the hormone. So during pregnancy, alright, during pregnancy, the production is under the control of the hormone called prolactin. Prolactin. Clear? So, prolactin will help in the production of milk during pregnancy, and this hormone is released from the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Clear? So prolactin is released from the anterior lobe of pituitary gland, which will help in the production of milk during pregnancy. And after childbirth, alright, after the birth of the child, after parturition, the secretion of the milk is also under the control of another hormone which is called oxytocin. Oxytocin. And this oxytocin is released from the posterior lobe of pituitary gland. So there are two hormones over here. Remember, one is prolactin and the second one is oxytocin. The prolactin is released from anterior lobe of pituitary gland, and oxytocin is released from the posterior lobe of pituitary gland. Hope it is clear for you. Next one, the most important term, alright, that is colostrum. C-O-L-O-S-T-R-U-M. Now what is colostrum and why it is important for the infant or the newly born child? Alright, now colostrum means the initial milk or the first milk which is secreted from the mammary gland after the childbirth. Alright, the initial milk or the first formed milk which is produced from the mammary gland, that is called colostrum. And this colostrum is rich in antibody. It contains antibody. Now which antibody? It contains the antibody called IgA. Alright, so this Ig means immunoglobulin. Clear? So that's why this antibody IgA, alright, will pass from the mother to the newly born child, alright, and this particular antibody will provide immunity to the child. So that's why colostrum is very, very important for the newly born infant. Clear this one? Okay. Now next slide. Hormonal control of female reproductive system. Because all these development, structures, functioning of these female reproductive structures are under the control of hormones. And what are hormones? They are the chemical messengers. Alright, so let's see what are the hormones and what are the functions. Clear? So generally the hormones are produced from the anterior pituitary gland and from the ovary. Clear? So from the pituitary gland and from the ovary, the hormones will be produced. It is essential for the functioning and for the development of female reproductive structures or the system. Clear? So let's see what are the hormones which are produced from the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Clear? So the two hormones which are produced from this anterior lobe of pituitary gland are FSH, means follicle stimulating hormone, and the luteinizing hormone. Clear? So what is FSH and what is its function? The name says follicle stimulating hormone. Alright, it will help in the development of follicles. Clear? So when we are talking about the microscopic anatomy of ovary, within the medulla, we are observing the different developmental stage of follicles, from the primordial germ cells to primary follicle, then to secondary follicle, tertiary follicle, then to the mature Graphite follicle. So that development of the follicle is controlled by the follicle stimulating hormone. Clear? And those follicles will release the hormone called estrogens. Clear? Second one, LH, luteinizing hormone. It will help in ovulation. It induces ovulation. And this we will talk in details when we learn about or when we discuss about the menstrual cycle. Clear? So, LH will induces ovulation or will help in ovulation. And what is ovulation? The release of magic ovum from the Graphite follicle. Clear? Next one, LH will also help in the formation of corpus luteum. Remember that after ovulation, the ruptured Graphite follicle will change into a yellow mass of body called corpus luteum. Clear? And that corpus luteum will also produce the hormone called progesterone. Clear? So LH induces ovulation and help in the formation of corpus luteum. So FSH and LH are produced from the anterior pituitary gland. Now let's move to ovary. So what are the ovarian hormones? Okay, so estrogen and progesterone are the ovarian hormones. Now why do we call it ovarian hormones? Because estrogens are produced from the developing follicles and progesterone is produced from the corpus luteum. And these two are also known as the female sex hormones, which controls the growth and formation of secondary sexual character in case of females. Clear this one? Okay, so what is it today? Today we have learned about the female reproductive system or the structures, alright, which compose of different types of organs. Like there are two pairs of ovary, the fallopian tube or the oviduct, right? Then uterus, cervix, vagina, Barthol's glands and the mammary glands, along with the external genitalia, which is called the vulva. We have got mons pubis, okay, labia majora, labia minora, clear, then clitoris and the hymen. Then we have discussed about the different parts of ovary, the different parts of the fallopian tube, along with function and the different part of the uterus. So kindly go through it. Alright? Now, whatever the doubts, whatever the questions that comes to your mind, you can ask me through the WhatsApp group, alright, or even you can call me. Clear? So go to the lessons, go to the textbook, any doubt, any questions, ask without hesitations. Clear? You can call me or you can simply put your questions in the WhatsApp group. Clear? Thank you. See you next class.